So I was going to read for you guys The Sweeper by A.M. Burge, is that the name? But it's still under copyright, and the book only had chapter 1. And then when I looked into it, realized it had copyright. So we got to scrap that and scrap The House of Goblin Wood. That's 1947, so that's also in copyright still. But I can do for you the ones I planned. I have right here. An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. That's for 1890, so that's safe. I'm going to do that tonight. But first I want to do The Treasure of Abbot Thomas, and then I'll do The Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Probably in the second one, because I want to start doing that tarot reading at the end of every ghost story, because they not only that makes something unique about me, that I'm giving you guys a tarot reading at the end of the ghost story. And if you don't want to watch that, you don't have to, then just click off the video. It's fine. Don't worry about it if you're not into tarot or that's not your thing. But I made that deck. I love it. I made those 10 decks actually that almost all of them I'm selling. I made, but I love this Ghost Patrick Matt Benag deck. I don't want to say I'm obsessed with it, but I just love it. I use it all the time now. Anytime I pull cards, I always use it. So that being said, let's get into our story tonight. We are going to do This Is Safe. This is from 1904. It's M.R. James, the king of horror, in my opinion at least. So there's other greats, obviously, LeFanu, Benson, but M.R. James, just forget it. He's like BDE. Okay, and if you don't know what that is, look that up. He's 6 of Wands. The Treasure of Abbot Thomas by M.R. James. Oh my God, it's Latin. Verum usque in presentem diem multa gariunt inter se canonici de abscondito quodam visuti abbatis Thomae tesoro quam sape quangum aduc in casum quasi verunt Steinfeldenses ipson enmen tamam ad hoc Florida in atete existentem ingentem ari massum circa monasterium dice perivente de quo multoes interrogatas ubi estat cum risu. Respirande solitas erat Job, Jonas, et Zacharias, vel vobis vel posteris indicabunt indemece aliquando adicere se inverturias minime inverserum inter alia huis abbatis opera hac memoria praecipue dingum indico quad fenestram magnum in orientale parte alia australis in ecclesia sua imaginibus optime in vitro depictus impleverit id quo et ipsis effigies et insignia imbidem postea demonstratam. Duman quoque abate lenium feri totam bresto verit puteo in atrio ipis effoso et lapidibus marmores pulce calates exornato decessit autem morte aliquantulum subitanea perculsus atatis sui anno. I'm not even sure. 1022 duo incarnationis vero dominicae, whatever. I suppose I shall have to translate this, said the antiquary to himself as he finished copying the above lines from that rather rare and exceedingly diffuse book, the Certum Steinfeldense Nobertinum. Well, it may as well be done first at last, and accordingly, the following rendering was very quickly produced. Up to the present day, there is much gossip among the canons about a certain hidden treasure of this Abbot Thomas, for which those of Steinfeld have often made search, though hitherto in vain. The story is that Thomas, while yet in the vigor of life, concealed a large quantity of gold somewhere in the monastery. He was often asked where it was, and always answered with a laugh, Job, John, and Zechariah will tell either you or your successors. He sometimes added that he should feel no grudge against those who might find it. Among other works carried out by this abbot, I may specifically mention his filling the great window at the east end of the south aisle of the church with figures admirably painted on glass, as his epigene arms in the window attest. He also rested almost the whole of the abbot's lodging and dug a well in the court of it, which he adorned with beautiful carvings in marble. He died rather suddenly in the 72nd year of his age, AD 1529. The object which the antiquary had before him at the moment was that of tracing the whereabouts of the painted windows of the Abbey Church at Steinfeld. Shortly after the Revolution, a very large quantity of painted glass made its way from the dissolved abbeys of Germany and Belgium to this country, and now may be seen adorning various of our parish churches, cathedrals, and private chapels. Steinfeld Abbey was among the most considerable of these involuntary contributors of our artistic possessions. I'm quoting the somewhat ponderous preamble of the book, which the antiquary wrote, and a greater part of the glass from that institution can be identified without much difficulty by the help either of the numerous inscriptions in which the place is mentioned, or of the subjects of the windows in which several well-defined cycles or narratives were represented. This passage with which I begin my story had set the antiquary on the track of another identification. In a private chapel, ooh Lord, no matter where, he had seen 3 large figures, each occupying a whole light in a window, and evidently the work of one artist. Their style made it plain that that artist had been a German of the 16th century, but hitherto the more exact localizing of them had been a puzzle. They represented, you'll be surprised to hear it, Job, Patriarcha, Johannes Evangelista, and Zacharias Propheta. And each of them held a book. Each of them held a book or scroll inscribed with a sentence from his writings. These, as a matter of course, the antiquary had noted, had been struck by the curious way in which they differed from any text of the Vulgate that he had been able to examine. Let's get a little more candlelight. So I'll make sure it's not under my hair, though, so I don't catch on fire. I'm not doing those kind of tricks for you guys. I know you're not asking for it, but yeah. I'm not going to catch myself on fire for YouTube. These, as a matter of course, the antiquary had noted and had been struck by the curious way in which they differed from any text of the Vulgate that he had been able to examine. Thus, the scroll in Job's hand was inscribed, Aro es locus in quo absconditur for conflator, and the book of John was habent in vestimentis suis scriptorum, quam neno novit for in vestimento scriptum, the following words being taken from another verse. And Zacharias had super lapidem unum septem oculi sunt, which alone of the 3 persons an unadulterated text. A sad perplexity it had been to our investigator to think why these 3 personages should have been placed together in one window. There was no bond of connection between them, either historic, symbolic, or doctrinal, and he could only suppose that they must have formed part of a very large series of prophets and apostles, which might have filled, say, all the clerestory windows of some capacious church. But the passage from the Seratum had altered the situation by showing that the names of the actual personages represented in the glass now in Lord D's chapel had been constantly on the lips of Abbot Thomas von Eschenhausen of Steinfeld, and that this abbot had put up a painted window probably about the year 1520 in the south aisle of his abbey church. It was no very wild conjecture that the 3 figures might have formed part of Abbot Thomas's offering. It was one which, moreover, could probably be confirmed or set aside by another careful examination of the glass. And so Mr. Somerton was a man of leisure. He set out on pilgrimage to the private chapel with very little delay. His conjecture was confirmed to the full. Not only did the style and technique of the glass suit perfectly with the date and place required, but in another window of the chapel he found some glass, known to have been bought along with the figures, which contained the arms of Abbot Thomas von Eschenhausen. At intervals during his researches, Mr. Somerton had been haunted by the recollection of the gossip about the hidden treasure. And as he thought the matter over, it became more and more obvious to him that if the abbot meant anything by the enigmatical answer which he gave to his questioners, he must have meant that the secret was to be found somewhere in the window he had placed in the abbey church. It was undeniable, furthermore, that the first of the curiously selected texts on the scrolls in the window might be taken to have a reference to hidden treasure. Every feature, therefore, or mark which could possibly assist in elucidating the riddle, which, is it elucidating? I think it's elucidating. The riddle which he felt sure that Abbott had set to posterity, he noted with scrupulous care, and returned to his Berkshire manor house. Oh, I love the Berkshires. Consumed many a pint of the midnight oil over his tracings and sketches. After 2 or 3 weeks, a day came when Mr. Somerton announced to his man that he must pack his own and his master's things for a short journey abroad, whither for the moment we will not follow him. Mr. Gregory, the rector of Parsbury, had strolled out before breakfast, it being a fine autumn morning, as far as the gate of his carriage drive, with intent to meet the postman and sniff the cool air. Nor was he disappointed of either purpose. Before he had time to answer more than 10 or 11 of the miscellaneous questions propounded to him in the lightness of their hearts by his young offspring, who had accompanied him, the postman was seen approaching, and among the morning's budget was one letter bearing a foreign postmark and stamp, which became at once the objects of an eager competition among the youthful Gregorys, and addressed in an uneducated but plainly an English hand. When the rector opened it and turned to the signature, he realized that it came from the confidential valet of his friend and squire, M. Somerton. Thus it ran: "Honored Sir, as I am in a great anxiety about master, arrayed at is wish to beg you, sir, if you could be so good as step over. Master has had a nasty shock and keeps his bed. I never have known him like this, but no wonder, and nothing will serve but you, sir. Master says I mentioned the short way here is drive to Cobblins and take a trap. Hoping I have made all plain, but am much confused in myself. What with anxiety and wakefulness at night. If I might be so bold, sir, it will be a pleasure to see a honest, brish face among all these forage ones. I am, sir, your obedient servant, William Brown. P.S. The village for town I will not term. It is Steenfeld." The reader must be left to picture himself in detail the surprise, confusion, and hurried preparation into which the receipt of such a letter would be likely to plunge a quiet Berkshire parsonage in the year of grace 1859. It is enough for me to say that a train to town was caught in the course of the day, and that Mr. Gregory was able to secure a cabin in the Antwerp boat and a place in the Koblenz train. Nor was it difficult to manage a transit from that center to Steinfeld. I labor under a grave disadvantage as narrator of this story in that I have never visited Steinfeld myself, and that neither of the principal actors in this episode, from which I derive my information, was able to give me anything but a vague and rather dismal idea of its appearance. I gather that it is a small place with a large church despoiled of its ancient fittings, a number of rather ruinous great buildings, mostly of the 17th century, surrounded this church, for the abbey, in common with most of those on the continent, was rebuilt in a luxurious fashion by its inhabitants at that period. It has not seemed to me worthwhile to lavish money on a visit to the place, for though it is probably far more attractive than either Mr. Somerton or Mr. Gregory thought it, there is evidently little, if anything, of first-rate interest to be seen, except perhaps one thing which I should not care to see. The inn where the English gentleman and his servant were lodged in, or was, the only possible one in the village. Mr. Gregory was taken to it at once by his driver and found Mr. Brown waiting at the door. Mr. Brown, a model when in his Berkshire home of the impassive whiskered race, who are known as confidential valets, was now egregiously out of his element in a light tweed suit, anxious, almost irritable, and plainly anything but master of the situation. His relief at the sight of the honest British face of his rector was unmeasured, but words to describe it were denied him. He could only say, "Well, I am pleased, I'm sure, sir, to see you. And I'm sure, sir, will master." "How is your master, Brown?" Mr. Gregory eagerly put in. "I think he's better, sir, thank you, but he's had a dreadful time of it. I hope he's getting some sleep now, but..." "What has been the matter? I couldn't make out from your letter. Was it an accident of any kind?" "Well, sir, I hardly know whether I better speak about it. Master was very particular he should be the one to tell you. But there's no bones broke. That's one thing. I'm sure we ought to be thankful." "What does the doctor say?" asked Mr. Gregory. They were by this time outside Mr. Somerton's bedroom door and speaking in low tones. Mr. Gregory, who happened to be in front, was feeling for the handle and chanced to run his fingers over the panels. Before Brown could answer, there was a terrible cry from within the room. "In God's name, who is that?" were the first words they heard. "Brown, is it?" "Yes, sir, me, sir, Mr. Gregory." Brown hastened to answer, and there was an audible groan of relief in reply. They entered the room, which was darkened against the afternoon sun, and Mr. Gregory saw with a shock of pity how drawn, how damp, with drops of fear, was the usually calm face of his friend, who, sitting up in the curtained bed, stretched out a shaky hand to welcome him. "Better for seeing you, my dear Gregory," was the reply to the rector's first question, and it was palpably true. After 5 minutes of conversation, Mr. Somerton was more his own man, Brown afterwards reported, than he had been for days. He was able to eat a more than respectable dinner and talked confidently of being fit to stand a journey to Koblenz within 24 hours. But there's one thing, he said, with the return of agitation, which Mr. Gregory did not like to see, which I must beg you to do for me, my dear Gregory. Don't," he went on, laying his hand on Gregory's to forestall any interruption, "don't ask me what it is or why I want it done. I'm not up to explain it yet. It would throw me back and do all the good you have done me by coming. The only word I will say about it is that you run no risk whatever by doing it, and that Brown can and will show you tomorrow what it is. It is merely to put back, to keep something. No, I can't speak of it yet. Do you mind calling Brown?" "Well, Somerton," said Mr. Gregory as he crossed the room to the door, "I won't ask for any explanations till you see fit to give them. As if this bit of business is as easy as you represent it to be, I will very gladly undertake it for you the first thing in the morning." "Ah, I was sure you would, my dear Gregory. I was certain I could rely on you. I shall owe you more thanks than I can tell. Now, here is Brown. Brown, one word with you." "Shall I go?" interjected Mr. Gregory. "Not at all, Jimmy Brown. The first thing tomorrow morning. You don't mind early hours, I know, Gregory. You must take the rector to there, you know." A nod from Brown, who looked grave and anxious. "And he and you will put that back. You needn't be in the least alarmed. It's perfectly safe in the daytime. You know what I mean. It lies on the step, you know, where we put it." Brown swallowed dryly once or twice, and failing to speak, bowed. "And yes, that's all. Only this one other word, my dear Gregory. If you can manage to keep from questioning Brown about this matter, I shall be still more bound to you. Tomorrow evening at latest, if all goes well, I shall be able, I believe, to tell you the whole story from start to finish. And now I'll wish you good night. Brown will be with me. He sleeps here. And if I were you, I should lock my door. Yes, be particular to do that. They like it, the people here, and it's better. Good night, good night." They parted upon this, and if Mr. Gregory woke once or twice in the small hours and fancied he heard a fumbling about the lower part of his locked door, it was perhaps no more than what a quiet man, suddenly plunged into a strange bed, and the heart of a mystery might reasonably expect. Certainly he thought to the end of his days that he had heard such a sound 2 or 3 times between midnight and dawn. He was up with the sun and out in company with Brown soon after. perplexing as was the service he'd been asked to perform for Mr. Somerton. It was not a difficult or an alarming one, and within half an hour from his leaving the inn, it was over. What it was I shall not as yet divulge. Later in the morning, Mr. Somerton, now himself again, was able to make a start from Steinfeld, and that same evening, whether at Koblenz or at some intermediate stage on the journey, I'm not certain, he settled down to the promised explanation. Brown was present, but how much of the matter was ever really made plain to his comprehension he would never say, and I am unable to conjecture. This was Mr. Somerton's story. You know roughly, both of you, that this expedition of mine was undertaken with the object of tracing something in connection with some old painted glass in Lord D's private chapel. Well, the starting point of the whole matter lies in this passage from an old printed book to which I will ask your attention. And at this point, Mr. Somerton went carefully over some ground with which we are already familiar. On my second visit to the chapel, he went on, my purpose was to take every note I could of figures, lettering, diamond scratchings on the glass, and even apparently accidental markings. The first point which I tackled was that of the inscribed scrolls. I could no doubt that the first of these, that of Job, there is a place for the gold where it is hidden, with its intentional alteration, must refer to the treasure. So I applied myself with some confidence to the next, that of St. John. They have on their vestures a writing which no man knoweth. The natural question will have occurred to you. Was there an inscription on the robes of the figures? I could see none. Each of the three had a broad black border to his mantle, which made a conspicuous and rather ugly feature in the window. I was nonplussed, I will own. And but for a curious bit of luck, I think I should have left the search where the canons of Steinfeld had left it before me. But it so happened that there was a good deal of dust on the surface of the glass, and Lord D, happening to come in, noticed my blackened hands and kindly insisted on sending for a Turk's head broom to clean down the window. There must, I suppose, have been a rough piece in the broom. Anyhow, as it passed over the border of one of the mantles, I noticed that it left a long scratch and that some yellow stain instantly showed up. I asked the man to stop his work for a moment and ran up the ladder to examine the place. The yellow stain was there sure enough, and what had come away was a thick black pigment, which had evidently been laid on with the brush after the glass had been burnt, and could therefore be easily scraped off without doing any harm. I scraped accordingly, and you will hardly believe, no, I do you an injustice. You will have guessed already that I found under this black pigment 2 or 3 clearly formed capital letters in yellow stain on a clear ground. Of course, I could hardly contain my delight. I told Lord D that I had detected an inscription which I thought might be very interesting and begged to be allowed to uncover the whole of it. He made no difficulty about it whatever, told me to do exactly as I pleased, and then, having an engagement, was obliged, rather, to my relief, I must say, to leave me. I set to work at once and found the task a fairly easy one. The pigment disintegrated and, of course, by time, came off almost at a touch, and I don't think that it took me a couple of hours, all told, to clean the whole of the black borders in all 3 lights. Each of the figures had, as the inscription said, a writing on their vestures which nobody knew. This discovery, of course, made it absolutely certain to my mind that I was on the right track. And now, what was the inscription? While I was cleaning the glass, I almost took pains not to read the lettering, save up the treat, until I got the whole thing clear. And when that was done, my dear Grey, I assure you, I could almost have cried from sheer disappointment. What I read was only the most hopeless jumble of letters that have ever shaken up in a hat. Here it is. Job. Dreve pen mum something. St. John, gibberish. Blank as I left, I must have looked for the first few minutes. My disappointment didn't last long. I realized at once that I was dealing with a cipher or cryptogram, and I reflected that it was likely to be of a pretty simple kind, considering its early date. So I copied the letters with the most anxious care. Another little point I may tell you, turned up in the process which confirmed my belief in the cipher. After copying the letters of Job's robe, I counted them to make sure that I had them right. There were 38, and just as I finished going through them, my eye fell on a scratching made with a sharp point on the edge of the border. It was simply the number 38 in Roman numerals. To cut the matter short, there was a similar note, as I might call it, in each of the... It takes a minute to get to the next page. Other lights, and that made it plain to me that the glass painter had very strict orders from Abbot Thomas about the inscription and had taken pains to get it correct. Well, after that discovery, you may imagine how minutely I went over the whole surface of the glass in search of further light. Of course, I did not neglect the inscription on the scroll of Zechariah, "Upon one stone are 7 eyes." But I very quickly concluded that this must refer to some mark on a stone which could only be found in situ where the treasure was concealed. To be short, I made all possible notes and sketches and tracings, and then came back to Parsbury to work out the cipher at leisure. Oh, the agonies I went through. I thought myself very clever at first, for I made sure that the key would be found in some of the old books on secret writing. The Steganographia of Joachim Tristamius, who was an earlier contemporary of Abbot Thomas, seemed particularly promising. So I got that in Selenius's Cryptographia and Bacon's De Argumentis Scientiarum and some more, but I could hit upon nothing. Then I tried the principle of the most frequent letter, taking first Latin and then German as a basis. That didn't help either. Whether it ought to have done so, I'm not clear. Then I came back to the window itself and read over my notes, hoping almost against hope that the abbot might himself have been supplied the key I wanted. I could make nothing out of the color or pattern of the ropes. There were no landscape backgrounds with subsidiary objects. There was nothing in the canopies. The only recourse possible seemed to be the attitudes of the hands. Job, I recall, scroll in left hand, forefinger of right hand extending upwards. John holds inscribed in book in left hand, with right hand blesses with 2 fingers. Zechariah scroll in left hand, right hand extended upwards as Job, but with 3 fingers pointing up. In other words, I reflected, Job has 1 finger extended. John has 2, Zechariah has 3. May not there be a numerical key concealed in that? My dear Gregory, said Mr. Somerton, laying his hand on his friend's knee. That was the key. I didn't get it to fit at first, but after 2 or 3 trials, I saw what was meant. After the first letter of the inscription, you skip 1 letter. After that, next, you skip 2, and then after that, skip 3. Now look at the result I got. I'd underlined the letters which form words. Do you see? Decim milia aria reposti sunt imputio in at. 10,000 pieces of gold are laid up in a well in, followed by an incomplete word beginning at. So far, so good. I tried the same plan with the remaining 3 letters, but it wouldn't work. And I fancied that perhaps the placing of dots after the last 3 letters might indicate some difference of procedure. Then I thought to myself, wasn't there some allusion to a well in the account of Abbot Thomas in that book, the Certum? Yes, there was. He built a putius in atria, a well in the court. There, of course, was my word atria. The next step was to copy out the remaining letters of the inscription, omitting those I already used. That gave me what you will see on this slip. And then it's like a bunch of code. Now, I knew what the first 3 letters I wanted were, namely Rio to complete the word atrio, as you will see. These are all to be found in the first 5 letters. I was a little confused at first by the occurrence of 2 eyes, but very soon I saw that every alternate letter must be taken in the remainder of the inscription. You can work it out for yourself, the result continuing where the first round left us thus. Rio domus abbatialis de Steenfeld omi Toma, qui posqui custodium super e gari a qui le toce. So the whole secret was out. 10,000 pieces of gold are laid up in a well in the court of the abbot's house at Steinfeld by me, Thomas, who have set a guardian over them. Gare aquile luce. The last words I ought to say are a device which Abbot Thomas has adopted. I found it with his arms in another piece of glass at Lord D's, and he drafted it bodily into his cipher, though it doesn't quite fit in pointed grammar. Well, what would any human being have been tempted to do, my dear Gregory, in my place? Could he have helped setting off as I did to Steinfeld, and tracing the secret literally to the fountainhead? I don't believe he could. Anyhow, I couldn't, and as I needn't tell you, I found myself at Steinfeld as soon as the resources of civilization could put me there, and installed myself in the inn you saw. I must tell you that I was not altogether free from forebodings. On one hand, of disappointment, on the other hand, of danger. There was always a possibility of Abbot Thomas's, well, might have been wholly obliterated, or else that someone ignorant of cryptograms and guided only by luck might have stumbled on the treasure before me. And then there was a very perceptible shaking of the voice here. I was not entirely easy. I need not mind confessing as to the meaning of the words about the guarding of the treasure. But if you don't mind, I'll say no more about that until it becomes necessary. At the first possible opportunity, Brown and I began exploring the place. I had naturally represented myself as being interested in the remains of the abbey, and we could not avoid paying a visit to the church, impatient as I was to be elsewhere. Still, it did interest me to see the windows where the glass had been, and especially that of the east and the end of the south aisle. In the tracery lights of what I was startled to see some fragments and coats of arms remaining, Abbot Thomas's shield was there, and a small figure with a scroll inscribed, Oculos habent et non vident. They have eyes and shall not see, which I take was a hit of the abbot at his cannons. But, of course, the principal object was to find the abbot's house. There is no prescribed place for this so far as I know. In the plan of the monastery, you can't predict of it as you can of the chapter house, that it will be on the eastern side of the cloister, or as of the dormitory, that it will communicate with the transept of the church. I felt that if I asked many questions, I might awaken lingering memories of the treasure, and I thought it best to try first to discover it for myself. It was not a very long or difficult search. The three-sided court southeast of the church, with deserted piles of building around it and grass-grown pavement, which you saw this morning, was the place. And glad enough I was to see that it was put to no use and was neither very far from our inn nor overlooked by any inhabited building. There were only orchards and paddocks on the slopes east of the church. I can tell you that the fine stone glowed wonderfully in the rather watery yellow sunset that we had had on the Tuesday afternoon. Next, what about the well? There was not much doubt about that, as you can testify. It is really a very remarkable thing. That curb is, I think, of Italian marble, and the carving, I thought, must be Italian also. There were reliefs, you will perhaps remember, of Eliezer and Rebecca, and of Jacob opening the well for Rachel, and similar subjects, but by the way of disarming suspicion. I suppose the abbot had carefully abstained from any of his cynical and elusive inscriptions. I examined the whole structure with the keenest interest, of course. A square wellhead with an opening on one side. An arch over it with a wheel for the rope to pass over, evidently in very good condition still, for it had been used within 60 years, or perhaps even later, though not quite recently. Then there was the question of depth and access to the interior. I suppose the depth was about 60 to 70 feet, and was to the other point. It really seemed as if the abbot had wished to lead searchers up to the very door of his treasure house. For as you tested for yourself, there were big blocks of stone bonded into the masonry, and leading down an irregular staircase round and round inside of the well. It seemed almost too good to be true. I wondered if there was a trap, if the stones were so contrived as to tip over when a weight was placed on them. But I tried a good many with my own weight and with my stick, and all seemed and actually were perfectly firm. Of course, I resolved that Brown and I would make an experiment that very night. I was well prepared, knowing the sort of place I should have to explore. I had brought a sufficiency of good rope and bands of webbing to surround my body, and crossbars to hold to, as well as lanterns and candles and crowbars, all of which would go into a single carpet bag and excite no suspicion. I satisfied myself that my rope would be long enough, and that the wheel for the bucket was in good working order, and then we went home to dinner. I had a little cautious conversation with the landlord, and made out that he would not be overmuch surprised if I went out for a stroll with my man about 9 o'clock to make, heaven forgive me, a sketch of the abbey by moonlight. I asked no questions about the well, and am not likely to do so now. I fancy I know as much about it as anyone in Steinfeld, at least. With a strong shudder, I don't want to know any more. Now we come to the crisis, and though I hate to think of it, I feel sure Greg agreed that it will be better for me in some ways to recall it just as it happened. We started, Brown and I, at about 9 with our bag, and attracted no attention, for we managed to slip out at the hinder end of the inn-yard, into an alley which brought us quite to the edge of the village. In 5 minutes, we were at the well, and for some little time, we sat on the edge of the wellhead to make sure there was no one staring or spying on us. All we heard was some horses cropping grass out of sight further down the eastern slope. We were perfectly unobserved, and had plenty of light from the gorgeous full moon to allow us to get the rope properly fitted over the wheel. Then I secured the band round my body beneath the arms. We attached the end of the rope very securely to a ring in the stonework. Brown took the lighted lantern and followed me. I had a crowbar. So we began to descend cautiously, feeling every step before we set foot on it, and scanning the walls in search of any marked stone. Half aloud I counted the steps as we went down, and as we got as far as the 38th, before I noted anything at all irregular in the surface of the monastery. Even here there was no mark. I began to feel very blank, and to wonder if the abbot's cryptogram could possibly be an elaborate hoax. At the 49th step, the staircase ceased. It was with a very sinking heart that I began retracing my steps, and when I was back on the 38th, Brown with the lantern being a step or two above me, I scrutinized a little bit of irregularity in the stonework with all my might. There was no vestige of a mark. Baby, come here. Then it struck me that the texture of the surface looked just a little smoother than the rest, or at least in some way different. It might possibly be cement and not stone. I gave it a good blow with my iron bar. There was a decidedly hollow sound, though that might be the result of our being in a well. But there was more. A great flake of cement dropped onto my feet, and I saw marks on the stone underneath. I had tracked the abbot down. My dear Gregory, even now I think of it with a certain pride. It took but a very few more taps to clear the whole of the cement away, and I saw a slab of stone about 2 square feet upon which was engraven a cross. Disappointment again, but only for a minute. It was you, Brown, who reassured me by a casual remark you said, if I remember right, "It's a funny cross, looks like a lot of eyes." I snatched the lantern out of your hand and saw with inexpressible pleasure that the cross was composed of 7 eyes, 4 in a vertical line, 3 horizontal. The last of the scrolls in the window was explained in the way I had anticipated. Here was my stone with the 7 eyes. So far, the abbot's data had been exact. And as I thought of this, the anxiety about the guarding returned me with increased force. So I wasn't going to retreat now. Without giving myself time to think, I knocked away the cement all around the marked stone, and then gave it a price on the right side with my crowbar. It moved at once, and I saw that it was but a thin, light slab, such as I could easily lift out myself, and that it stopped at the entrance to a cavity. I did lift it out unbroken and set it on the step, for it might be very important to us to be able to replace it. Then I waited for several minutes on the step just above. I don't know why, but I think it was to see if any dreadful thing would rush out. Nothing happened. Next, I lit a candle, and very cautiously, I placed it inside the cavity, with some idea of seeing whether there were foul air and of gaining a glimpse of what was inside. There was some foulness of air which nearly extinguished the flame, but in no long time it burned quite steadily. The hole went some little way back, and also on the right and left of the entrance I could see some rounded, light-colored objects within, which might be bags. There was no use in waiting. I faced the cavity and looked in. There was nothing immediately in front of the hole. I put my arm in and felt to the right very gingerly. "Just give me a glass of cognac, Brown. I'll go on in a moment, Gregory." Well, I felt to the right, and my fingers touched something curved that felt, yes, more or less like leather. Dampish it was, and evidently part of a heavy, full thing. There was nothing, I must say, to alarm me. I grew bolder, and putting both hands in as well as I could, I pulled it out to me, and it came. It was heavy, but moved more easily than I had expected. As I pulled it towards the entrance, my left elbow knocked over and extinguished the candle. I got the thing fairly in front of the mouth and began drawing it out. Just then Brown gave a sharp ejaculation and ran quickly up the steps with the lantern. He will tell you why in a moment. Startled as I was, I looked round after him and saw him stand for a minute at the top and then walk away a few yards. Then I heard him call softly, "All right, sir," and went on pulling out the great bag, in complete darkness. It hung for an instant at the edge of the hole, and then slipped forward onto my chest and put its arms around my neck. My dear Gregory, I am telling you the exact truth. I believe I am now acquainted with the extremity of terror and repulsion which a man can endure without losing his mind. I can only just manage to tell you now the bare outline of the experience. I was conscious of a most horrible smell of mold and of a cold kind of face pressed against my own and moving slowly over it, and of several, I don't know how many, legs or arms or tentacles or something clinging to my body. I screamed out, Brown says, like a beast, and fell away backward from the step on which I stood, and the creature slipped downwards, I suppose, onto that same step. Providentially, the band round me held firm. Brown did not lose his head and was strong enough to pull me up to the top and get me over the edge quite promptly. How he managed it exactly, I don't know, and I think he would find it hard to tell you. I believe he contrived to hide our implements in the deserted building nearby, and with very great difficulty he got me back to the inn. I was in no state to make explanations, and Brown knows no German, but next morning I told the people some tale of having had a bad fall in the Abbey ruins, which I suppose they believed. And now before I go further, I should just like you to hear what Brown's experience during those few minutes were. Tell the rector, Brown, what you told me. Well, sir, said Brown, speaking low and nervously. It was just this way. Master was busy down in front of the owl, and I was holding the lantern and looking on, when I heard something drop in the water from the top, as I thought. So I looked up, and I see someone, Ed, looking over at us. I suppose I must have said something, and I held the light up and run up the steps, and my light shone right on the face. That was a bad one, sir, if I ever see one. A oldish man, and the face very much fell in, and laughing as I thought. And I got up the steps as quick, pretty nigh as I'm telling you. And when I was out on the ground, there weren't a sign of any person. There hadn't been the time for anyone to get away, let alone a whole chap. And I made sure he weren't crouching down by the well, nor nothing. Next thing I hear Master cry out something horrible, and all I see was him hanging out by the rope. And as Master says, however I got him up, I couldn't tell you. You hear that, Gregory, said Mr. Somerton. Now does any explanation of that incident strike you? The whole thing is so ghastly and abnormal that I must own it puts me quite off my balance. But the thought did occur to me that possibly the person who set the trap might have come to see the success of his plan. Just so, Gregory, just so. Just so. I can think of nothing else so likely I should say if such a word had a place anywhere in my story. I think it must have been the abbot. Well, I haven't much more to tell you. I spent a miserable night, Brown sitting up with me. Next day I was no better, unable to get up, no doctor to be had. And if one had been available, I doubt if he could have done much for me. I made Brown write off to you and spent a second terrible night, and Gregory, of this I am sure. I think it affected me more than the first shock, for it lasted longer. There was someone or something on the watch outside my door the whole night. I almost fancy there were two. It wasn't only the faint noises I heard from time to time all through the dark hours, but there was the smell, the hideous smell of mold. Every rag I had on me on that first evening I had stripped off and made Brown take it away. I believe he stuffed the things into the stove in his room, and yet the smell was there, as intense as it had been in the well. And what is more, it came from outside the door. But with the first glimmer of dawn, it faded out, and the sound ceased too, and that convinced me that the thing or things were creatures of darkness and could not stand the daylight. And so I was sure that if anyone could put back the stone, it or they would be powerless until someone else took it away again. I had to wait until you came to get that done. Of course, I couldn't send Brown to do it by himself, and still less could I tell anyone who belonged to the place. Well, there is my story. If you don't believe it, I can't help it, but I think you do. Indeed, said Mr. Gregory, I can find no alternative. I must believe it. I saw the well and the stone myself and had a glimpse, I thought, of the bags or something else in the hole. And to be plain with you, Somerton, I believe my door was watched last night too. I dare say it was Gregory. But thank goodness that is over. Have you, by the way, anything to tell about your visit to that dreadful place? Very little was the answer. Brown and I managed easily enough to get the slab into its place. And he fixed it very firmly with the irons and wedges you had desired him to get. And we contrived to smear the surface with mud so that it looks just like the rest of the wall. One thing I did notice in the carving on the wellhead, which I think must have escaped you, it was a horrid, grotesque shape, perhaps more like a toad than anything else. And there was a label by it inscribed with the 2 words, Depositum Custodi. So that was The Treasure of Abbot Thomas by M.R. James. And I love M.R. James. I'm also going to do for you guys at some point Count Magnus and the Mezzotint, the Rose Garden. I've already done Warning to the Curious. I think I did that the other day. That's up on the channel. If you didn't see that, check that one out. And I think I might have already done another of his story too. Let me see. I know I did Warning to the Curious, like I said. And then, who's the other one? Hold up. M.R. James, I guess it would be right. So, and then I'm gonna, wait, I think, okay, so I've only done so far Warning to the Curious. No, okay, no, I've done more. Oh my goodness, I've done 5 or 6. See? Okay, so I did a Warning to the Curious, I did the Ashtray, I did a vignette, Canon Albrecht scrapbook, and the stalls of Barchester Cathedral. I've done, what is that? 1, 2. This thing keeps freezing. This is the Mac Mini. I was able to resurrect this thing from the dead again. And, all right, so that's like 5 or 6 stories so far. 1, no. Let me see. Yeah, okay, that's 5. And then tonight is 6. Count Magnus, the Mezzotint, the Rose Garden, and then there's probably others too. St. Martin's Close I'm going to do at some point. Like, they're not going to all be like in one day, but over the next... I'm going to be doing this long term now. So this is definitely going to be something I'm going to be doing long term. And so anyways, I usually like to give you guys a nice, what do you call it? Tarot reading. And I'm also learning Welsh. So I did like a phrase on another video, and maybe I'll do one here, but I don't remember what it was. Like, it's like, I know French and Spanish, so languages do come easily to me, but anyways, I may not share this phrase with you guys. So I'll do it another time. So let's do, okay, I'm going to do 6 cards for you. I could do a Celtic cross even. Think of something you want to know about. Let's do the Celtic cross, what the heck. So think of something that you want to know, like kind of in depth. And again, this is a general reading, so it may or may not apply to your situation or question. But let's do it. Okay, I'm going to put you so you can see the computer. Can you see it? Okay. This, by the way, I'm using, this is my Ghost Patrick Matt Benog, if I'm saying that right, deck. It's spelled this way. Can you see it? Here, let me make it so you have the nice powder blue. Actually, it'll make it easier to see in the dark, though. So he was Lord of Catalan, 12th century, and not sure if Catalan means the throne or something. Anyways, I did a whole ton of research on this. Okay, so this is gonna be 10 cards, and if you have like a question about something you want like a clarifier on, maybe put it in the comments. Like when I see the comments, maybe I'll like pull up the deck and pull something for you. But okay, our first card, the heart of the matter, it's Ace of Spears reversed. So Spears is like thoughts. This could be like a spark of something you're thinking of doing, an idea, a project. But when it's reversed, it's like blocked. The energy's kind of blocked. So this might be something you're thinking about doing, or some venture. I feel like it could be, this could be like apply to, it might be like something, a story you're thinking of writing or a project, because swords is like thoughts. So this might be like a written story. It feels like a story or something. Screenplay, movie, something you want to create. You're feeling a little blocked in your creativity is possibly like what's going on. You've got an idea, you either don't know how to express it fully or you're feeling a little blocked. Because when it's reversed, you're feeling like you're encountering some resistance. Next card, 9 of Stones upright. So this is actually very positive though. This is Pentacles. So I feel like don't give up on this idea. Don't take this to mean that this idea is not worth pursuing, because 9 of Pentacles, you might make a lot of money from this idea. You just have to like flesh it out a bit, pursue it. This deck is like based with a lot of Celtic imagery. This is that red kite bird, they call it, of Wales. So, and our next card is right here, the foundation. So I think this message of this is your idea is blocked, but with your 9 of Pentacles, don't give up on it, because this is like abundance and a garden. I think you could make a lot of money from this idea. You just need to maybe like untangle it a bit. You've got 4 swords upright. So maybe taking a little break from it sometimes. Don't beat a dead horse, as they say. And so taking a little rest from it, the idea, make sure you get enough sleep. If you're feeling like stuck on it, I feel like they're saying just back off a bit from it. Do something else. Work on another project. Not for forever, but give it a little rest. Like an hour or 2 or something, not like days and weeks. Don't get like distracted and never get back to it. But take a little rest, take a nap. You'll come back refreshed. Now you got the Lovers upright. This is very positive. So this could be several things. It could be in relation to a creative project. Could be that you might bring someone else in to work on it with you. Could be. This can also be like a choice. This is like union and choice. So it could be you collaborate with somebody to help you to sort out the project. Or this also could be that like you have some type of choice to make. You might be like making a choice to go a bit of a different creative direction with this idea. You're still going to do your idea, but maybe you're going to change it a bit. I've got to fix this frame thing. Okay. So it's not telling you not to do it. It's just saying you might bring in some help. You might either flesh it out with somebody like a collaborative writing partner. I wouldn't go though like talking to everybody about it. Okay. That's not what this means. This is just like one person and like somebody that you trust, that like you creatively work with. Someone who has like knowledge on the topic and that gets your idea. Don't try to like go to somebody that either doesn't understand it or is not into it, because they might just, first of all, they're probably not going to give you good advice. And second of all, they're not going to understand, and they might even like be negative. It might like throw you off. Like it might make you feel like sometimes like when people don't understand something, they can be like very critical. The Sun reverse. Okay, so this might be you're feeling like your light is blocked. You're definitely feeling creatively blocked. That's what's possible. But it doesn't mean give it up. Ace of Stones upright, things do come right. So this is like Pentacles. So in this deck, Stones is Pentacles, okay? Cauldrons is Cups. Spears is Wands. Ace of, oh my God, wait, oh my God, I feel so stupid. No, Spear, oh my God. Ugh. You know, I'm tired, I guess. Ace of Spears. Okay, so yeah, all the more. Go back to the beginning, right? Ace of Spears. It still's creativity. Okay, I know I said swords, but Spears is Wands, creativity. So this is definitely some type of creative project you're thinking about doing. You're feeling blocked in it, but you can resolve it. Just take a little rest. You might need to bring in some collaboration or help. You feel like your energy is blocked and you're maybe feeling like you're wondering about this is a good idea or not. But you've got the Ace of Pentacles, which is telling you, no, it is a good idea. Do stick with it. You just need to flesh it out a bit. Sometimes like when you're writing something, you just got to tease it out a bit. But it doesn't mean not to do it. And this is like when you have the 9 of Pentacles here and then also this anchoring it. I feel like it's saying this idea could really actually make you a lot of money. So don't give up on it. You just get it. It just needs a little polish and refinement and fleshing out. 4 of Cups upright. Okay. With this, you may not be seeing something. That's why maybe that collaboration energy might be running this by this other pair of eyes. Also taking that rest. So because like when you have the 4 of Cups upright, you are not seeing everything. There's like, you're focusing on what's not working, but there's something that does work. There's like a cup being offered to you you're not looking at. And you might even be like getting a little pissy and pouty, feeling sorry for yourself. Don't go into that energy. Do not feel sorry for yourself. Don't start getting very negative. Focus on gratitude, what's going right. Take a little break from it. I'm really feeling like maybe like this collaboration partner is going to help you. But it's very important you don't like get into negativity, because you can get like sucked into a negative vortex. You don't want that. King of Swords upright. You're very clear-headed. And this is, I feel like this is you. You're clear-headed. You're in your space. And you can get through this. Some of it's thought, though, but some of it's also going to be from the heart, because we create from our soul, not just from our mind. Okay, we have 2 more cards. So 7 of Cauldrons reversed. This is very positive for coming out of a fog and being... I'm holding this at an angle if it's moving. 7 of Cups can be like fantasy when it's upright. This is reversed. This is a very positive message, because you're going to be able to come through this and the ideas will become clear to you. And the solution to this creative project and how to format it and how to express it is really going to become very evident to you. So I definitely feel like you're on the right track with trying to figure this out. Now, see, this is the old computer, so it's always doing beach. But oh, look, this is very positive, the world. I can't make them bigger than this, so I don't know if you can see. But the world is like completion. So this is saying that this idea is really, you've got a winner here with this idea. You just need to flesh it out. You need to put in maybe a little bit of collaboration, get some rest. Don't like try to overwork yourself. But the world upright is very positive that you're going to come full circle. You will create this idea. So actually it's, but just watch here with this 4 of Cups, because this card can be like, you're looking at the 3 things that are not working. You're not seeing like there's something being offered to you, and you could be choosing not to see it, but it more just be like you're blocked by limiting thoughts. So that is, again, though, this is general reading. So don't take that as gospel. This is not going to apply to everybody. And sometimes the readings will resonate, sometimes it won't. It doesn't mean that you did anything bad or wrong. Just readings, well, with tarot, it's general. And the other thing too with tarot is even if it's like something that you're not liking the outcome, it's not fixed. Tarot is just showing you a trajectory and energy. If you don't like it, you can change it. And none of this stuff is set in stone. I'm a big believer like in law of attraction, law of assumption. There's like the mind, that you can do a lot with your mind. And you can try to like start imagining another outcome, another solution. So with this though, it feels like you're trying to do a project, you're feeling creatively blocked. And I feel like you might be discouraged, but that's why it's like saying take a break. You might do a little collaboration to get some clarity. Clarity will come. But it's also, I think, be aware of like you have limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs. We all have blocks. Yours might even be related to past life, I'm feeling. It could be. So if you're into past lives, doing a little bit of past life exploration, meditation, past life regression. If you want to spend the money to go to like a past life regressionist, you could do that. Or you could just do it on your own. YouTube. I've even got on my channel, well, that's kind of more directed with twin flame, with your twin flame. But you could use it just for past life in general, to uncover past lives. Because by uncovering your past life with a twin flame, you're uncovering a past life that you have. And you can like find it. Is there a block there that maybe is like coming around now? Because yeah, believe it or not, these things can, even from thousands of years ago, they can still be hanging around because the energy and cell memory, it's insane how like stuff, I've uncovered things just from doing my own energy work, stuff from at least 2,000 years back, maybe longer. Maybe like, I've gotten as far back at least as 3000 BC. So that's about what, 5,000 years? And then there's probably stuff even before that. But it seems like most of the crap is more recent. Or it could have originated them, but it just feels like it's more recent. So doing some energy clearing. Palo Santo is good. Sage just kind of gets rid of all energy. Do I still have mine? I was doing some clearing earlier. No, it's right here, is it? Nope. It's somewhere around here. Oh, it's okay. I can't reach it where it is easily, but you can clear energy with sin. Oh no, it's right here. Oh my God. Palo Santo. Okay, this is what it looks like when it's not burnt. And I got this off of Amazon. You can get anywhere as metaphysical shop. I don't have a car. I don't drive right now. I do know how to drive, but I haven't driven in a while. I don't have a car, so I can't like go out really. So this is I got off of Amazon. But if you don't want to go off of Amazon, maybe like wherever you live, your things are more accessible, then definitely go for it. But you could burn like Palo Santo to clear energy, to try to like move out some of this negative energy. Or you could use cinnamon. I like to use cinnamon stick because it does get rid of negative energy, and I like to put orange oil with it. A little bit, but try to put it not where you're burning it, because it seems like the cinnamon doesn't burn when the orange oil is on it. But you can burn a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of orange oil to clear out old negative energy, bring positive things. So, and that might help to clear out some of these negative energy that's creating the block, because there is some energy. Even if you don't believe in this stuff, just try it, because I think you'll find it'll give you more clarity. And with that 4 of Cups energy, make sure that you might be like closing yourself off to something that's available to help you, but you're just closed off to it. And you might not even be like aware of like what I'm talking about. But I think as you like start to clear out this energy and start to like look around a bit more and be like, well, where am I closing myself off? It'll start to come to you. And you can even ask your holy guardian angel or whatever higher self, higher power, whatever you call it, to help you. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. And I hope you like that story. I hope my pronunciation was whatever. I know French, I know Spanish. Like I said, I'm learning a bit of Welsh here and there, this, that. But, and I did study some Italian in college, but I speak mostly the Spanish now, and I like to listen to stuff in French. I can definitely have a conversation in Spanish. French, I probably could, but I've really kept up the Spanish more than anything. And so they had the Latin there, because Latin's actually the base language for, they call them the Romance languages for what? Yes, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian, the 5 Romance languages, but Latin's like the base. Say hi. You want to say hi to YouTube? She loves to be on camera. This one is a ham. She loves to bomb the videos. She's also in the judge's house at the beginning. She has me on. If you hear her growling, it's her and the dog. She doesn't like Lulu, and she hisses at Lulu. And Lulu likes to go in the litter box and eat her waste. I don't know why. The dog is very well fed. It gets its 3 meals a day, plus, okay, it does get some table food, but obviously not spices. And never let your dog have cinnamon, avocado. Like some people like avocado toast. Don't let your dog have avocado. It'll kill it. Onions. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Always look online. Always look online. You have to be very careful, because you can think you're giving your dog something, and it doesn't know that it can't have it. It will ask you, and they play like the little baby eyes and everything, but you don't want to kill your dog. So always like look up whatever, but I know cinnamon, chocolate, sugar, onions, avocado. I forget, there's like a bunch of other things. So always look online. In general, don't give your dog any spices. If you cook anything, make it very bland. If you're going to put spices in it, don't give it to it. And like if you're putting like rice or something, aromatics, there's nothing wrong with those things. I'm not saying you can't have them, but just don't give it to the dog. And then definitely don't share with the cat. That's another reason why I don't have sage, because she was eating it. Cats are not supposed to have sage. And Miss Thing here likes to eat the sage. She was like actually eating it. So I was like, I can't have this. I've had this cat 10 years. I want her to live a little bit longer. Hopefully, however long she does. But so the thing is, that's why I have the Palo Santo and the cinnamon. She doesn't seem to go after those. And everything's up on a table where the dog can't reach it. So she doesn't grab it. And I have my little altar here. I have Tihi the Goddess, Bastet, and then like a baby thing. Okay, you want to get down. You want to get down. Okay, spoiled brat. Grand Empress. So, I'm definitely recording this. I may do more tonight or maybe not. I'm working on the thumbnails. I hope you enjoy the tarot readings. I'm going to try to do one after each story going forward. And I do have some other decks I did too. I made one for Margaret Beaufort, Margaret of Anjou, Anne Neville, Anne Boleyn, and her daughter Elizabeth. I made one that's called Chateau Ghosts, because it's like Marie Antoinette, and so it's like French Rococo, Marie Antoinette, like Versailles, which I like, and then Gothic. But I couldn't call it Versailles, so I call it Chateau Ghost. It's like French castle. And then I did this Ghost Patrick Mappinant deck. And then there's a few others I did. Lady Amy Dudley. And if you're familiar at all with Tudor history, there's Elizabeth the First. The Catholics go in the closet for whatever reason. Elizabeth I and Robert Dudley. He was married to Amy though, and then Amy was found at the bottom of the stairs. I think she was murdered. I don't think she unalived herself. I'm pretty sure she was murdered. And so I made a deck honoring her. She's also known as Lady Amy Rosebart, R-O-S-P-A-R-T. That's not talking about Catherine Howard and, oh, I forget her name. Lady Jane Rochford or Rochfield. The one who was executed with Catherine Howard. That's not who I'm talking about. That's Jane, it was either Rochford or Rochfield, something like that. I'm talking about Robert Dudley's wife, Lady Amy Rosebart. Their names get, I can sometimes confuse them. The names seem similar, but they're not. Two totally different people. So, any questions you have, request, but it does need to be before, this is 2026, so put it before 1928 figure. If it wasn't published in 1928 or earlier, it could go on the list for in the future. Like, I wanted to do the sweeper for you guys. That won't be available in copyright till like 2032 or something like that. Hopefully, if I'm still alive in 2032, if I'm still alive, and I hope to still have YouTube and still be doing this. I want to do this long term. So when that time comes, I'll definitely do the sweeper. And there was, oh, and the House of Goblin Wood. If I'm still alive in the 2040s, I'll do this too. I have like no premonition. I'm just saying, we don't know. We don't know how long we're going to live. We could go tomorrow. We could go on our sleep. Who knows? But I've got this YouTube channel started. And even if I do cross over the other side, I hope you guys will still enjoy these videos. And that this will be up a long time. So I'm really enjoying doing these stories. I've always loved Victorian and Edwardian. I've always loved the Victorian time period. And I've always loved these stories. I got into them like years ago. And I've just always loved British literature in general, British history, culture, if you can't tell. The Tudors, all that stuff. So, we will enjoy. And especially if you like Halloween, like me, you're going to have a lot of fun and tarot. So I'll see you on the next video.